The same legends who played through pain, fire, and blood are now falling apart in silence. 20 metal legends now live with chronic illnesses, their once powerful bodies worn down by long-term disease. Some have lost their strength, others their voices. Brace yourself. Some of these metal gods can't stand, sing, or speak, but they're still fighting to stay alive. 1. Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy Osbourne isn't just the Prince of Darkness. He's the last man standing from a generation that tried everything to die young. He survived decades of hard opioids, coke, pills, booze, wild tours, overdoses, and stunts that made him a walking punchline. But in 2019, something finally caught him. Something quiet, something slow. Parkinson's disease. Type 2, a neurodegenerative disorder that doesn't scream. It whispers, and it never stops. He hid it at first. The tremors, the slowness, the stiff limbs. Then came the falls. A neck injury from a 2003 ATV crash came back to haunt him. He needed surgery. Then another. A staph infection in 2018 nearly took his life. Then the truth came out. Parkinson's was the real enemy. The disease doesn't just weaken the muscles, it strips independence. Ozzy now needs help dressing, walking, sometimes even forming sentences. His mind is still sharp, but the body lags behind. Sharon is his anchor. His kids talk openly about the toll, the good days, the terrifying ones. He's tried everything: stem cell therapy, experimental treatments, specialists in Europe and the US. He wants to tour. He tries to rehearse, but the body just isn't the same. And still, he grins, still records, still calls himself immortal, because Ozzy isn't afraid of death. He's started that beast in the face 1,000 times. What terrifies him now is fading, quietly, slowly, with no fire left. Parkinson's doesn't care if you're a god. It brings even legends to their knees. 2. James Hetfield. James Hetfield has spent decades roaring through stadiums, making metal feel like a fist to the chest. His voice is thunder, his rhythm guitar is like a tank engine. But his real war has never been on stage. It's been inside him. Addiction, chronic, progressive, always hiding in the dark corners, always waiting for a weak moment to strike. He drank to silence the chaos. Raised in a strict, emotionally repressive Christian Science home, James never learned how to process pain, only how to bury it. Music became the scream, alcohol became the escape, and for years they walked together. The parties, the blackouts, the rage. In 2001, he entered rehab for the first time. Fans saw some kind of monster and thought it was over, that he had won. But addiction doesn't get won, it gets managed for a while. In 2019, he relapsed. Metallica canceled an entire tour. James went back to rehab. Again. And when he came out, he didn't pretend. He admitted it. The disease never left. The urge still claws at him. Some days are easier. Others, it whispers louder. He attends meetings, practices therapy, keeps his support system close. He knows one drink could burn the whole thing down. Family, band, life. But he also knows that silence is worse. His music still comes with scars. His voice still carries weight. But now, every scream is about survival. Because for Hetfield, staying clean isn't a finish line. It's the battle that begins every single morning. 3. Dave Mustaine. Dave Mustaine has always been a storm in motion. Fired from Metallica in the early days, he didn't break. He retaliated. He built Megadeth from scratch, out of venom and pure obsession. His riffs were faster, his lyrics sharper. Every solo sounded like a man with something to prove. And in 2019, something finally stepped in that he couldn't outplay: throat cancer. A tumor in his neck. The voice that launched 1,000 riffs, suddenly in jeopardy. He didn't make a public spectacle of it. He quietly endured 51 radiation treatments, 9 rounds of chemotherapy. He lost weight, lost strength, and for a while, lost his ability to sing. Fans didn't know if Megadeth would return, but Mustaine kept fighting. Cancer wasn't his only enemy. For years, he's lived with type 1 diabetes, a disease that doesn't flare up, it stalks. Every tour becomes a minefield of sugar crashes, insulin schedules, and energy crashes. One wrong meal, one missed injection, and he could collapse mid-set. And he has. He fainted on stage, felt numbness crawl through his hands, stopped sets just to keep himself alive, but he always comes back, always angry, always faster. Even now, he's not free. Cancer remission is fragile. Blood tests, scans, constant reminders. But he writes, he records, he tours. Because for Mustaine, illness isn't the end, it's fuel. Every riff carries a scar, every solo is defiant. And when he picks up the guitar, it's not just to play, it's to win. Again. 4. Rob Halford. Rob Halford is the metal god, the scream, the leather, the biker, the icon. But behind all the fire and fury, his body has been waging a quiet, vicious war. In 2020, he revealed the truth: prostate cancer. The kind that doesn't make headlines until it's too late. He called it his private hell. A silent battle that started in 2017. He didn't announce it, didn't post selfies from hospital beds. He took the diagnosis and went to war. Radiation, surgery, follow-ups, hormonal side effects that ripped through his energy and confidence. But he didn't stop singing, didn't stop leading Judas Priest like nothing had changed. Cancer drains more than your body. It scrapes away your identity. And for Rob, it wasn't just about survival. It was about staying strong in a genre that worships power. He had to rebuild everything, relearn how to control his voice, relearn how to command a stage while managing pain and fatigue. But cancer wasn't his only demon. He's also been sober for over 3 decades, a daily battle. Addiction doesn't vanish when the spotlight fades. It lurks. And when your body starts breaking down, the old cravings come crawling back. Rob fights both monsters now, cancer and addiction, the old pain and the new one. Some days the stage is a battlefield. Some days it's a sanctuary. But every time he walks out to the roar of the crowd, he wins again. 5. Tony Iommi. Tony Iommi isn't just a guitarist. He's the architect of heavy metal. The riffs that birthed an entire genre came from his hands. Hands that were injured before the music even started. At 17, he lost the tips of 2 fingers in a factory accident. Most people would have quit. Tony didn't. He built his own prosthetic fingertips out of melted plastic. Relearned guitar, changed the sound of music forever. But that wasn't the last time his body betrayed him. In 2012, he was diagnosed with lymphoma, a blood cancer that doesn't scream. It whispers, eats at you quietly. And even after aggressive chemotherapy and grueling treatments, remission doesn't mean freedom. It means waiting, monitoring, hoping. The chemo wrecked his immune system, left him fragile, fatigued, vulnerable. Touring became harder. Writing sessions had to be timed with blood tests. Even today, he undergoes regular screenings to make sure the cancer hasn't come back. He still plays, still writing, but he's slower now, more measured. Each riff comes with the knowledge that time isn't infinite. He lives with fatigue, joint pain, and a body that's been through war. Yet he never quit. Tony Iommi turned injury into innovation, turned cancer into clarity. He didn't just fight disease. He redefined what strength looks like in metal. Every time you hear a heavy riff, you're hearing a man who refused to break. Because even with broken fingers and a body under siege, Tony never stopped making the world shake. 6. Phil Anselmo. Phil Anselmo has never been just another frontman. He was the unchained beast at the center of Pantera, roaring pain and rage into the world. But behind the aggression, his body was slowly betraying him. In the mid-90s, during Pantera's brutal tours, Phil suffered a serious back injury, herniated discs that crushed nerves and triggered pain that never left. Instead of stopping, he did what metal legends do. He hid it, numbed it, Booze, opioids, street chemicals, anything to silence the fire in his spine. But the fire kept burning. He collapsed on stage more than once, played shows half paralyzed, pushed his body to the brink for the fans, for the band, for the noise. In 1996, after a show in Dallas, he overdosed on hard opioids, clinically dead for several minutes before paramedics dragged him back. He called it a wake-up call, but the pain, both physical and mental, never truly left. Years later, he underwent back surgeries, trying to repair the damage. Screws, plates, rehabilitation. It helped, a little. But the nerve damage is permanent. He lives with chronic pain every single day. Sharp, stabbing, relentless. Some days he struggles just to stand. Other days, adrenaline carries him through. Phil cleaned up, mostly. He still performs, still screams. But the rage now carries the weight of real suffering, a body rebuilt but never whole. He never wanted pity. He wanted the world to know he's still standing, even if every step costs him more than anyone can see. 7. Mick Mars. Mick Mars wasn't still on stage because he was cool. He was still because he had no choice. Diagnosed at just 17 with ankylosing spondylitis, a rare and degenerative form of arthritis, his spine began betraying him before Motley Crue ever sold a single record. The disease fuses vertebrae, stiffens joints, and warps posture until the body locks itself into a cage of bone. While his bandmates dove across stages and set fire to everything, Mick stood like a stone monument. People thought it was part of his image, mysterious, still, controlled. It wasn't. It was pain management. His hips deteriorated, his back twisted, his movement became limited, then excruciating. By the early 2000s, his pelvis had rotated to the point that it began affecting his organs. Simple things like walking or sleeping turned into endurance tests. He underwent spinal surgery in 2004, including fusion procedures and the insertion of metal hardware. It helped slow the damage, but nothing stops this disease. The pain never left. It just became something he learned to live with. Touring became harder. Every hotel bed, every airport line, every night on a vibrating tour bus chipped away at him. But he didn't quit, not until 2022, when he officially stepped down from Crue due to his worsening condition. He still writes, still records, still crafts riffs soaked in darkness. But Mick Mars doesn't chase the spotlight anymore. Because for over 4 decades, he carried the weight of a broken spine and never let it break his sound. 8. Danny Carey. Danny Carey is a machine behind the drums, 7-minute epics, impossible rhythms, polyrhythms inside polyrhythms. He's the reason Tool sounds like a storm wrapped in math, but even machines have limits, and Danny's limit has always been air. He's had asthma since childhood, real asthma, not allergies, not light wheezing, the kind that shuts your lungs down, that hits in the middle of a show and makes the world spin. Touring with Tool means lights, smoke machines, dusty venues, late nights, cold cities. All of it is hell for someone with asthma. Every performance becomes a calculated risk. He carries inhalers everywhere, one on him, one in the kit, more in the dressing room. He warms up slowly, breathes deep, prepares like a boxer before a title fight. And still, the disease doesn't care. Some nights it hits anyway, a dry throat, a cold gust, a dust cloud. Suddenly, the god on the drum throne is gasping between fills. He trains constantly. Cardio, diet, discipline, not for looks, for survival. Because asthma doesn't just threaten the show, it threatens the man. One severe attack and it's over, but you'd never know. He doesn't flinch. Don't miss a beat. While fans lose themselves in the chaos, Danny is focused on every breath, every move, like a soldier in a war no one else can see. And still he delivers the storm. Because for Danny Carey, the drums are breath, and he fights for everyone. 9. Devin Townsend. Devin Townsend is chaos incarnate. He builds music like it's architecture, layers stacked on madness, noise wrapped in beauty. But that chaos isn't just in the music. It lives in his mind. And it never leaves. Devin was diagnosed with bipolar disorder in his early 20s. At first, he didn't understand it. He thought the highs were genius, the lows, just exhaustion. But it wasn't just mood swings. It was a roller coaster of mania and depression, ferocious and fast. Mania pushed him into recording frenzies. He'd make entire albums in days, sleep 3 hours, and feel unstoppable. But then came the crash. Days where getting out of bed felt impossible. Self-destructive thoughts, paranoia, self-doubt so deep it ate his voice. Doctors stepped in, meds, hospital stays, sobriety. He gave up substances and alcohol, not to be clean, but to survive. He says weed triggered psychosis. LSD fractured his grip on reality. The diagnosis changed everything. He began to manage it. Therapy, structure, understanding. But bipolar disorder doesn't vanish. It's still there, waiting. Every creative burst is a risk. Every tour is a test of balance. Devin writes about it openly. His albums reflect it, wild swings between joy and dread. His fans see the genius, but they don't always see the cost. He doesn't hide from it. He talks, he teaches, he plays. Because for Devin, art isn't an escape. It's the only way to stay sane. 10. King Diamond. King Diamond built his legacy on horror, candles, corpse paint, and screams that sounded like the dead were singing through him. On stage, he was a ghost, a ghoul, a satanic storyteller. But in 2010, the horror became real, and it came for his heart. Multiple heart attacks, not one, not two. A chain of cardiac failures that brought him to the brink. He was rushed to the hospital and underwent triple bypass surgery. They cracked open his chest, rerouted his blood, and rebuilt the thing that kept his music alive. For a man who never missed a beat, this was silence, terrifying, cold, and real. After surgery, he had to relearn how to breathe, how to walk, how to sing. His voice, that unearthly wail, was fragile. He couldn't scream, couldn't perform, could barely speak. His recovery was slow and brutal. Months of medication, cardiac rehab, a new diet, a new life. He changed everything, stopped smoking, watched his weight, monitored his blood pressure daily. Because one slip, one skipped pill, one missed sign, and the next attack might be his last. He's back now. He tours carefully, records meticulously. But his heart will never be the same. The scars are literal. You can see them if you look close enough. And maybe that's why his music feels even darker now, because King Diamond doesn't just sing about death anymore. He danced with it and came back screaming. 11. Nergal. Adam Darsky doesn't ask permission. He burns Bibles on stage, spits fire, challenges governments, and turns concerts into rituals. But in 2010, a real demon came for him. One that didn't care about stage makeup or rebellion. Leukemia. It hit like a truck. One day, he was touring with Behemoth. The next day, he was hospitalized. Acute leukemia. Aggressive, fast, and deadly. His body collapsed. Bones ached. Fatigue dragged him into bed and held him there. His immune system failed. He lost over 20 pounds in weeks. The fire was still in his eyes, but his body was disappearing. He needed a bone marrow transplant. It came from a stranger, a perfect genetic match. Before that, he endured months of chemotherapy. His hair fell out. His skin turned pale. Fans waited in silence. Some didn't think he'd make it, but he did, barely. When he returned, everything had changed. His voice, his strength, his focus. The man who once screamed with boundless rage now lived inside a body with new rules. The disease is in remission, not gone. He still gets blood tests, still watch for signs. One misstep, one infection, and it could all start again. Nergal calls it a reboot, a second life. He's even written about it. But make no mistake, and he's still fighting. Cancer doesn't leave scars, it leaves ghosts. Now, every time he steps on stage, he's not just defying religion. 13. Peter Steele. Peter Steele looked like something out of a vampire novel. 6'8", long black hair, pale skin, a voice so deep it felt like thunder rolling through a graveyard. As frontman of Type O Negative, he built a world drenched in death, lust, and sorrow. But the real darkness wasn't in the lyrics, it was in his head. Peter suffered from bipolar disorder. The highs came with manic creativity, wild energy, non-stop touring, grand ideas. But the lows, they were brutal, isolating, paralyzing. He could go from seducing a stadium to vanishing into his apartment for weeks. He drank to numb it, relied on stimulants, pills, anything to take the edge off. And when nothing helped, he disappeared. He faked his own death once in a publicity stunt. But in 2010, the headlines were real. Peter Steele was dead. Heart failure. He was just 48. Some say it was genetic. Others blame years of chemical dependence. But those who knew him understood the truth. Mental illness had been eroding him for years. He tried treatment, spoke openly in his later interviews about medication and therapy. He wanted peace, but peace never came easy. His towering body hid a mind that was collapsing. His deep, seductive voice masked a man drowning in noise. And even though he laughed, even though he joked, the pain was constant, right there behind his eyes. And when it finally came for him, he didn't have to try very hard. 14. Richard Z. Kruspe. Richard Z. Kruspe is the fire behind Rammstein's colossal sound, precision, distortion, control. His riffs are built like machines, industrial, punishing, beautiful. But there's a sound he can't control, one that follows him everywhere: tinnitus. It started as a hum, barely noticeable, then a faint ring. Now it's a constant scream inside his skull, a piercing, high-pitched tone that never fades. After years of relentless touring, standing in front of massive amps and explosive pyrotechnics, his ears gave out. Not all at once. Gradually, like a door closing in slow motion until silence was never truly silent again. Tinnitus doesn't stop when the music ends. It's there in the dark, during sleep, while speaking, while resting. It's not just annoying, it's maddening. Some days he can't focus. Some days it's hard to think. And for a musician whose world revolves around sound, it's a cruel fate. He now wears custom in-ear monitors, uses decibel limiters, avoids loud rehearsal spaces. He's learned to protect what's left, but the damage is permanent. There is no cure. He's spoken about how it's altered the way he writes, records, even listens. It robbed him of peace, and yet he continues. Because silence, for him, is no longer an option. For Richard, music was never just volume. It was power, identity, survival. And even though his ears are broken, he still pushes through the noise, because now his only choice is to make louder music than the ringing in his head. 15. Alissa White Glues. Alissa White Glues screams like her lungs are made of steel. As the voice of Arch Enemy, she commands the stage with a presence that's sharp, fierce, and unstoppable. But behind the guttural roars and flawless performances hides a truth she can't growl her way out of. She's been battling asthma since she was a child. It's not stage fright, not nerves. It's a chronic respiratory condition that turns breath into struggle. Asthma attacks don't give warning. They hit like a trap, triggered by dry air, smoke, physical exertion, or even anxiety. On stage, under hot lights and fog machines, She's always one breath away from crisis. Alyssa travels with inhalers, sometimes multiple, each one a lifeline. She trains obsessively, cardio, yoga, controlled breathing, just to keep up with the physical toll of screaming for an hour straight. She maintains a strict vegan diet, believing it reduces inflammation and keeps her respiratory system as healthy as possible. Still, the fear never really leaves. She fainted on stage, run off mid-set to regain her breath. And yet she returns every time, louder and more aggressive, as if daring her lungs to keep up with her voice. What makes it worse is how invisible it is. To fans, she's a powerhouse. To the disease, she's a target, a performer whose entire career depends on her ability to breathe, while her body constantly tries to take that away. And yet, night after night, she turns breathlessness into brutality. Because for Alyssa, every scream is earned the hard way. 16. Mila Petrotsa. Mila Petrotsa has been leading creator into thrash metal battlefields since the 80s. A commander with a voice that could shatter concrete and riffs that sound like war. But behind the chaos and leather, his body is constantly at war with itself. He lives with celiac disease, an autoimmune condition that turns something as simple as food into a hidden weapon. For Mila, gluten isn't just a diet trend, it's a threat. When he eats even trace amounts of it, from a breadcrumb, pasta, beer, his immune system goes into attack mode. It inflames his small intestine, causes stabbing abdominal pain, bloating, fatigue, and brain fog that can last for days. Touring, where food options are limited and mistakes are easy, becomes a logistical nightmare. He's had to learn every label, every ingredient, every local menu, sometimes in languages he doesn't even speak. A catering slip-up, a contaminated prep surface, or a mislabeled sauce can take him out of commission mid-tour. And there's no quick fix. The only treatment is total, lifelong avoidance. Celiac disease doesn't sound brutal. It doesn't strike fast, but it wears you down. It isolates you. It follows you everywhere. Backstage, airports, restaurants, festivals. It limits your freedom. But Mila doesn't let it limit his art. He's still on stage, still ferocious, still snarling through sets that demand every drop of energy, all while managing a disease that punishes him for eating the wrong thing. He gets up and plays through the pain. 17. Jon Schaffer. Jon Schaffer built Iced Earth on speed, force, and endurance. He's a rhythm guitarist with the precision of a machine and the intensity of a man trying to outrun something. And in his case, he is. His spine. Years of headbanging, punishing stage movement, and long-haul touring left Schaffer with degenerative disc disease and cervical spine damage. It started with neck pain, then radiating numbness in his shoulders and arms. Eventually, it became constant. Every move, every turn of the head sent electric jolts down his back. Sleeping became an ordeal. So did standing. He's undergone multiple surgeries, spinal fusion, nerve decompression, with metal hardware inserted to stabilize his vertebrae. Recovery was slow, painful, incomplete. The surgeries reduced some symptoms, but couldn't erase the damage. Chronic nerve pain still lingers. Some days he feels like parts of his body are asleep. Other days, it feels like they're on fire. On stage, his posture changed. He started limiting movement. Offstage, he's spoken openly about needing rest, rehab, and a new relationship with his own body. His days of running across the stage are long gone. Spinal injuries don't heal completely. They don't forgive. They demand constant attention, lifestyle changes, and pain management. There's no room for ego when your own neck is a liability. Still, Schaffer writes, still records, still straps on the guitar like armor, even when the weight makes his spine scream. It was how he learned to keep moving, even when his body begged him to stop.